Hi, here's a winter project I just completed. It's a guitar I built from scratch. Uh, Maple neck, came out of a block of maple. Figured maple top from a tree from the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Hemlock back from a tree from my yard at the cabin. DiMarzio Super 2 pickup, Super Distortion pickup set up to coil tap. Played it yesterday for 4 hours after stringing it and finished wiring it the night before. Plays very well. This time I've got this hunk of flame maple that I have resawn. I resawed and book matched pieces. It's about 3/8 thick. This will be the cap on the guitar. I'm sending my maple boards after I've resawn them back through the drum sander. I'm gonna have to do this, use a little sanding drum to get in there, and then I'm gonna soften the edges here too a little bit. So here we have it. Yeah, I got a little bump in there I got to take care of, but that was from my template. So there we go. All right, I got to take care of a little bump here. So I got the old 1950 shopsmith here we'll employ. Beautiful. All right, so next I got my neck blank, piece of dried maple, and I've got to route the slot for my truss rod. So I've got to figure out where the nut's going to be and place the truss rod so that it comes out right at the end of the fretboard. So I'll route that tight fit. It's a 1/4 inch or fuzz under it. Then I've got to cut the shape of the neck. I've got a StewMac pre-slotted fretboard I'm going to use. And then I'll apply that. I think I'm going to go into right here in my scrap, and I'm going to make a overlay, a veneer for my headstock, my son's idea. And I might book match it and throw a piece of dark wood down the middle. So we'll see what happens. All right, moving ahead with the next steps on my guitar project. So this time I was going to build a neck. So I've got this template for a Stratocaster neck, and I'm doing a custom headstock. So I've routed, used it as a guide to create my own template, and I'm going to put this sort of shape on it, try to keep the strings linear, try to make it look a little less PRS-y. So I really wanted to capture this curve here. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to flip the template and capture it on the other side, and then I'll put my other template in place and I'll route that position. So I've got to dole it out here with a stick. Once I get this in place, we'll be set to go. All right, here we are. Got the template all mounted, ready to route the headstock. All right, now I'll turn it around, get this other side. All right, I'm getting ready to route the truss rod slot in my neck. I've got the neck stenciled out here. I made this little jig that is just the width of my router, and I've got some stop marks indicated. I did a test piece and I fit the truss rod into it. I had to carve out the end, and then I cut it on my table saw here, and then resawed it on my bandsaw to thin the stock, because I'm thinking about putting a veneered headstock with the tiger maple. Truss rod fits snug perfectly in there. Get it right side up here, and then you know, I'll have to cut the access hole and things like that. So here we go with the routing. Okay, so I removed the template. I leaned the router a couple times, so I got a couple of digs. One's in the heel here. I think I've got a little one over here. But all in all, this is the profile of the neck. And when I sand the neck down, I'm going to be taking the sides off when I profile it. So I'm gonna finish this one. I have enough material to make two because I figured I'd screw one up. So I want to get to the next step, which is laying on the fingerboard and cutting that to size, and then I'll profile it. And if I get far enough on this neck, great. Otherwise, I'll move to the next one. I finished routing the truss rod slot in the neck, my neck blank. So my next step will be to, I've got to affix my template, and then I'll go to the bandsaw, rough cut the shape, and then finish it with the router. And then I'll have my neck blank ready to put the fretboard on. There's the truss rod in the slot, tight fit, that's what you want. And then we'll go from there. I have to change blades on the bandsaw in the meantime. My next step here is I'm going to affix my template to the neck blank, and I'm doing it with the masking tape and the CA glue. So I'll stick this to this and then line up the center lines, and then I can just peel them apart later without breaking anything. The key is to, when your glue container gets all gunked up, you got to use an applicator. And I've got an applicator here. So put a little CA glue on here. Not too much, but I want it to hold. Because if it releases on me, that'll be a mess. Trying to get it lined up again. All right, now I'm going to place everything in place, line up my marks. This is a medium set glue. I don't think I'll use any accelerator, but I should have about 30 seconds or so to get my position. All right, I've started to rough cut the shape on the bandsaw, you know, and I'll finish it off on the with the router with the temp. Okay, and the rest will be easy to do with the router. Next, I'm working on the fretboard. I have my template here, and I bought a couple of pre-slotted fretboards from StewMac. These have, I believe, a 9-degree radius fretboard. So what I did was I transferred my dots using the template and drilled one out. I got one that's a little wonky here, and I am going to fill these dots with epoxy, and then I'm going to do a blue dot, a dark blue dot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some blue dye, some trans tint dye, and then I'm going to put a little flake in there, some diamond flake, so that I get a little sparkle maybe. I might not put the sparkle in there, we'll see. All right, so we're getting ready to fill the dots with the epoxy. I've masked off the front to sort of limit my mess and my sanding, and I also had to mask the back in order to keep it from running through. So here we go. I want to crown these a bit, not that much, so that they so that I have limited work to do later on the sanding. Just fill these minimally. Since it's already radiused, the fingerboard or the fretboard, I don't want to have to do too much sanding on these. I think I can do a little neater job. Probably wipe some of that off. Having a steady hand would be nice too. Well, this has ended up a little messier than I wanted. I'll have a little bit of sanding to do, but everything is crowned, and so that's okay. All right, I finally got my dots cleaned up. Using plastic dots might have been easier, but I put a little CA glue in there to fill any voids, make sure everything's at the surface. I'm going to use a fret saw and just clean out some of these grooves in case something's in there. My next step, though, is to glue the fretboard onto the neck. I'm going to stick some things on either side of it and put a ton of clamps down it. And then I'm going to press the frets in, and then I'll shape the neck after that. Well, I guess I got to trim this flush first. So first I'll glue it in place. Before I glue the fretboard on to the neck, I'm going to put a couple of brads in here and cut the heads off. I'll put one in the nut, and then one down here. I'll drill through both things. This will pin the fretboard in place, so when I put the glue on, it doesn't scoot around. Okay, it's time to glue up the fretboard. We've put in some locator pins in here. I've covered the truss rod so we can get glue on it. Tried to keep the glue away from the center here best I could. I've got the locator pins. Bit of a challenge doing it from the underside. Okay. Okay, now I can clamp it up. Put lots of clamps on there. Some initial pressure on here. I took all the clamps off the neck. The fretboard's all glued down. I did a little shaping here, just some sort of pre-carving using an X-Acto knife before I get out the heavy file. But tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the excess off the fingerboard and sand that flush with the edges. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the hole for the access to the truss rod adjuster here. I'm going to set it up in my drill press at an angle like this and drill in like that and hit that spot about where the nut goes, about 1/4 of an inch down, and then the step after that I've got to do is resaw the headstock, thin that, and then I have to sand the transition here. And in order to do that, I made a little sanding drum like this that I'll wrap some paper around, and that'll cut right in there. And then I'm debating whether I'm going to put a veneer on the headstock using some of this flame maple right there so it'll match the body. So we'll find out tomorrow. All right, I set up the bandsaw, put a new blade on there. This is a 1/2 inch blade. My 3/8 wasn't cutting and I had to take the inch off, obviously. I'm trimming along the side here, and then I'm going to sand the rest, getting my fretboard almost to size. Figure I'll do the final bit with a sanding block. Next task here is to drill the hole for the truss rod adjustment. All right, now we're going to resaw this piece that I'm using for the cap on the body and try and make a veneer overlay for the headstock that matches it with the flame pattern. All right, I've got my overlay for the headstock. I've sanded it down. It's somewhere between a 1/16 and an 1/8, under 3 millimeters, whatever. And I'm going to try and bend that. This gives you a look at what the flame maple is going to look like, when I finish it. So the idea is that I've got this curve here. So I'm going to bend, I want to bend this overlay before I put it on the neck. Then before I put it on the neck, I'll cut this, I'll sand this with my 2-inch diameter sanding drum I made, and then I'll lay the overlay in place. So now I got to bend it. So the idea is that I'm going to clamp it to this wood. I'm going to clamp this at some key point, and then using heat and water, I'm going to bend it and then let it dry in position. We'll see how that works. Okay, here we go with the attempt at wood bending. First attempt. And no, I'm not making tea, and no, I'm not curling my hair, just so you know. I put some plastic down. I put a little dam back here so the water run forward. I got a little hole in the floor there as a drain. So hopefully this won't be too messy. Whoa, not too messy. But I figured I'd go with some hot water. Combination of heat and water will bend. All right, we're almost to where we want to be on the bend. Just had a few clamp adjustments and stuff like that. Then I want to clamp it in place and let this thing dry, maybe overnight. A little more water, a little more bend, and check it in the morning. Let my clamped bent wood sit overnight and dry. So the big question is, is the position going to be, is it holding its position? So get these clamps off. Let's take a look. Looking pretty good to me. We're going to resaw the headstock now, thin it down, and then we'll go from there. All right, I'm liking my setup. I'm going to sand my transition here. So I've got the 1950s Shopsmith going horizontal. I can raise or lower the bed, and I made a drum that's got a 2-inch diameter, which is what I think I need for my radius. So let's see how this goes. All right, the headstock sanded down nicely. I haven't done the final sand. I've got my flame maple, tiger maple, whatever it is, veneer here that I bent a few days ago. It's all dried out. So the idea is I'm going to glue that right in there, and I'm going to clamp it with this piece here. That I contoured to match the curve. So we'll see what happens. A little bit anxious to see how the headstock overlay came out. I wrapped the fretboard in some shrink wrap, keep the glue off everything. I'm tired of cleaning out all the fret slots over and over again. Now we're going to do some of the final, just trimming this veneered headstock to size, a rasp, a little sanding disc, a little hand sanding. We'll see how it goes. All right, I'm filling the side marker holes right now. I drilled everything, I masked them because it was such a mess when I did the large dots. And this will be a lot neater. I just wanted to put a first coat in there and then crown them a bit, and we'll be good to go. I also put down a water-based poly on the neck before I did this, and I can sand it off, but it'll keep the epoxy from settling in there as well. I've started to clean up the dots that I poured with epoxy. Have to finish sanding those off, and then what I'm doing is this was a much cleaner way of creating those dots. They've all come out pretty good. And I'm also starting to draw some lines on here for my carving. I've got my center line. This line is 5 millimeters to one side or the other. At this end, at the 12th fret, it's 10 millimeters. And then I'm a third of the way down the neck here with 2/3 behind there. And what I'll do is I'll carve off a facet, then I'll split this facet and carve to the center line and do it from the other side too, and try to stay outside of the lines. Okay, did some sanding on the headstock, located the hole for the truss rod. I've got my index lines for carving it. I did some rough sanding on my dots, and then for some gratification I figured I'd put in some frets, and not bad. It's makes you feel good, like you're getting something accomplished after the other things I've been working on today. So As I understand it, the goal is just to get them seated across the way in the slots. And I think some guys might use glue, but these slots are tight enough that I don't want to use glue if I don't need to. And then I'm nipping them twice because I'm using some small cutters and the jaws aren't large enough to get back too deep. But went to Harbor Freight and I got some cheap nippers, and then I just ground them flush so I can get right up there and cut those. Just like cutting your fingernails. And then of course I'll have to go file them smooth so they're not rough and nasty on the ends. But that's an end thing. So that's the process pretty much. I got pre-radius, pre-cut frets. I mean, they're not very expensive. I think I bought them from StewMac. It's a 9-degree fretboard, which I also bought from StewMac. I think these were what was available. They're 7-degree bend, which they say you want them to be more arched than your neck, so that when you put them in there, they hugged everything. So that's the process. All right, I got all the frets put in. Everything's seated pretty well. I'll check them later. Didn't use any glue, but I mean, it's obvious how far they go in and all that. Now I'm gonna do a little carving on this. So I drew a line on here. This guy said, you know, whatever, mark the 12th and the 1st, go 5 millimeters one way, 5 millimeters the other, 10 millimeters the other way, 10 millimeters the other, and draw some lines, and then go 1/3 of the way up from the fretboard here and consider that a facet, flatten that, and then draw a line right in the middle of that facet, and then connect that to the center point, rounding it off, and then you can sand it round. So that's my next step here. I want to protect my frets. The reason I put the frets in first before I started shaping it is because I wanted a flat surface, so I knew that they seated well. I could have put them in later. Now I have to just be careful of them. So there we go. My son turned me onto these Shinto files, fairly inexpensive. Takes off a good amount of material. And here we go. Oh yeah, I marked out my heel area and I carved a little safety around that. All right, I'll show you where I'm at so far. So here's my line that I'm cutting to, and then here's my line up here, and I'm trying to make a facet there. Then I'll do the other side, then I'll split each of the facets into 2 parts and do a smaller angle back this way. And there we go, and then I'll make the transitions. You know, I carved out a head, you know, with an X-Acto knife, some transitions and a chisel. And I'm staying away from those for the heel and all. I haven't made my body yet, so I'll adjust my pocket to fit the heel. This is a strat-sized heel, so you know, it's close, but I'll try to get a tight fit. All right, I'm starting to work the other side, the first cut. Connect this line to this line here. All right, we've got the first facet of the one side pretty well cut. I'll take off this side. I'm going to flatten this out, smooth it. Then I'm going to split that facet and I'm going to cut from here to there and take that hump out. And I'll do the same over here, and then I'll hand sand it round. I've got to work on the transitions, obviously, and things like that, but it's all coming along nicely. Taking shape. All right, so this is what we end up with. Some hand sanding, a bit of carving with a chisel. But I have to take it easy from here on out. I'm going to use my profile guide and just sort of get this to where I want it at 12. I also have one that I can use at the first fret. Get my final shape, but the main thing is to get it to how it feels good in your hand as well. So with that, I think we're set. All right, we got the neck all shaped up and ready to go. A lot of hand sanding, contoured a line here. I mean, it feels pretty good compared to some of the profiles of the fender necks I've got and things like that. Use my profile gauges, so I'm pretty happy with where things are at now. I made an updated template for the body. Little spot to sand there. So for my routing. So now you've seen the maple cap, and I need a backing wood. All right, we've got our blank all glued up here. So it started out as a hemlock tree, ripped it down to 5 to 6 inches each. Gonna end up with about 15 by 18. I'll sand this flat, and then we'll glue the maple top on it, sand it to final thickness, then route it to shape. Okay, the glue's dried overnight. I've got my Hemlock guitar blank here. 1 3/4 in the end is the idea. And I'm excited about the Hemlock. It's a tree I had cut down to do some work on a house, and had it milled, and it's just fun to be able to use your own wood for something. And the properties of the Hemlock, as far as the hardness and stuff, I'm really hoping it adds some resonance, some sustain to the instrument. So we'll see what happens. All right, we're getting set to glue up the blank here. Spread all this out. Get my book match right here. All right, we got this all clamped up. I think we're set to go. In the meantime, what I need to do is use my humbucker template and finish cutting out my holes. I wasn't sure what I was going to do as far as pickup configuration, whether I was going to go with P90s, whether I was going to go with a humbucker and a couple of single coils. I've got a DiMarzio Super Distortion that I pulled out of a Les Paul that I've got. I bought it in the 70s or the 80s, I guess, and I'm going to use that pickup in the tail, and I'm going to use a Super 2 in the front, I think. And then I'm going to do a string through bridge. So I've got to drill through the body, but I think that that's the best way to get the strings up against the end grain of the wood in the body for your sustain. Well, I took the clamps off, my glue up, so I've got my Hemlock 1 3/4 backer. It's about 19 by 14 now. And I've got my maple book matched, say 3/8 to a 1/2 inch, somewhere in there, top on it, cap, let's call it. Everything's lined up on the center line with the book match. Now I'm going to do a rough cut with the bandsaw to get it closer to shape, and then we'll end up putting the template on there and routing it. Okay, now things are starting to get exciting. I'm going to put in the template on the blank here using the crazy glue and masking tape method. Get everything placed on the center lines, and then I'll be set to do my routing. All right, gonna make the routing a little easier. Gonna hog out a little material with a Forstner bit here in the neck pocket, and then the pickups. we're gonna route the body to the template. I've hogged out wood in the pickup holes and the neck hole there. 7/8 here, 5/8 there to get my depths right. I'm almost there, I'm not quite there. And I've got a fresh bit here and we'll give it a go. All right, now we're going to do the neck pocket. I've got the pickups done, 7/8, got the perimeter done. I've got to cut this off at some point. But the neck pocket's 5/8 deep. I had to change router bits, change routers, go to a 1/4 inch drive. I prefer the half, they don't deflect. And here we go. All right. We are done routing. Nothing disastrous has occurred. You never know. I was going to tape this, but it's a small. So now we want to know what does this look like? All right. What does this look like? Okay, catching up here, I routed the pockets for the pickups. I sanded the profile a bit. I've got the neck pocket all done. Nice fit here. Nice firm fit. And then what I did was drew some lines. Figured out where the neck pocket would be relationship to the neck. Got my distance based on from the 1st to the 12th. And then again, my 25.5 inch scale. And then positioned my bridge. Found the center line and then the distance. And then drilled some pilot holes. And then I have my string through holes that I'll drill next. Here we are. The next step, while I'm waiting for the parts to arrive in the that I ordered online, I've got to drill out my string through holes. I marked my bridge holes, put my bridge on there, located where they are. I've taped the back. This is a Hemlock back, and I don't want it to splinter. I used an awl and marked the holes, and we'll put them through and then make them larger from both sides, matching the ferrule size once those arrive. Well, my box of parts came, so I've mapped out where the controls go. Previously, I drilled the holes for the strings, through strings. I got to adjust one hole. I pound the ferrules in from the back after I sand it. And I made a template that I'll line up with the front here. where the controls are going to go. I've got a push-pull pot. I've got a regular volume pot, and then I got a 3-way switch, short shaft one. Then I'm going to put the jack on the side like a Telecaster. Then what I'll do is I'll cut this out, use it as a guide for routing my cavity on the back. So I'm going to drill some pilot holes through the centers here, and then I'll take my Forstner bit and take some wood out of the back. I'll mount all of the controls on this piece, wire them so they'll all be held in place. I'll know exactly their orientation to each other, and then I can just take them off and drop them in the cavity and hook up the pickups. I also took the tuning pegs, and I had an extra template for my headstock. I'm just trying to fit them in here to make sure everything's going to fit and nothing's going to crash into each other, or if I had to stagger them. And then my son wants to know, are we going to angle the pegs or keep them straight? I think I'll probably keep them straight, but that's where we're at right now. All right, we created a location with hit it with the awl and got little dimples there so I know where I'm going. And here we go. I'm going to use this right angle piece of plywood to cut out my pocket. I'll use it as a template, and I'll flip it to do the other side, and see how that goes. Okay, I got the cavity cut out for the controls. I've got my holes drilled. I had to thin them from the back. The switch doesn't have a lot of depth to it. Now I'm going to drill the hole because I have to bring the pickup wire into this cavity. I've got to get this cavity over to this cavity. I have to drill the grounding wire to the bridge. And in order to do that, I'm going to drill right through the top and come all the way through. I hit it with an awl to start it. All right, I successfully drilled the hole for the pickups to connect to each other by coming in through the neck pocket. This hole here will go to the bridge. So now I've got to drill down here and connect that hole. I also drilled a hole to go into my pocket for the controls. See, I had to thin out some of the controls. The switch goes a lot deeper, so I'm into the maple top. Then I have to go back and drill my jack hole. I've plotted a line through my holes, measured the depth, got a marker on my depth. I stuck a probe in here to make sure I knew how deep it went in there. And I figure that I'm going to be drilling that hole right here. I marked it with an awl. So here we go. I can feel it go through. Perfect. Now I'm all set up to drill the hole for the jack. I'm using a Telecaster style mount for the jack. So I've got my Forstner bit in there. I love this Shopsmith. It's so versatile as far as being able to tilt the bed and do your different cuts. You know, good for some things, not good for everything. I've got my pilots drilled all the way through. Now I'm going to drill the full-size hole. I'm going to go halfway through, flip it, and then go halfway through from the other side so I don't get any tear out. Okay, the last hole. The neck plate, position the neck and all that, all set to go. I just have to drill the holes in the body and mark them on the neck and drill them. All right, we've got all the holes drilled. I drew some contours in for the relief for your arm. I'm going to round over the edges and do the belly cut. I stuck some fishing line through here just to make sure I could make the run for the ground wire. Not quite done yet, but rough sanded belly cut and I softened it for my arm there on the side. Rounded the heel up. Now I'll hand sand it or sand it with an orbital sander. I've been hand sanding the body, and here's where I'm at so far. You know, everything's smoothing out nicely. I have a little bit more to go on my belly cut over here. It's nice. You can see the pattern. The maple is going to be very nice. And then over here, I've taped up my neck. I bought a little hammer, Harbor Freight, and made, you know, I went on my rocker thing on the over 3 frets, made sure they were all in all the way. I tapped in the ones that were rocking, and now I'm going to use my sanding beam. It's 18 inches, and I'll hit it where I've got the Sharpie on them. And the Sharpie will come off the high ones and stay on the low ones, and I'll keep them till they're all the same height. So the frets have been leveled. Used my beam. I started with this side and finished just doing some spot work on the edges. Went to Harbor Freight, picked up some files. I took the edge off the file here. Really too big. I picked this, you know, that was $4. This set was $4. And this one here in particular, doesn't have anything on the edges. Seems to be the one that I'm using to crown the frets. And then I go back over them with a little, I got a slot here, and do some of this. And then I'm going to get a fingernail buffer and polish them up. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's not fun. It's kind of ugly too. But once you polish them up, it looks very nice. The key is don't overdo it, I guess. All right, I dressed the frets. I crowned them. I put a sandpaper in there and sanded each one. Fingernail thing, I buffed them, and everything's all set then. I don't want to take any more material off. So I've got everything sanded. I put a couple coats of Tru Oil on the back of the neck, and the headstock I've masked off where I don't want to stain it. And I'm starting to put the first coat of stain on. Using black to bring out the grain, I'll sand it off, and then I'll put a color coat on. I was going to go with blue. I did some tests, and then thought maybe I'd go with brown because I kind of like the way it looks. This is the way the brown looks if I don't use black under it. This is the way it looks with black under it. It brings the grain out. I'm using a water base trans tint so I can blend it in later however I'd like. With the other color, I can do a little fade on the edges. Gives me a lot of leeway. Here's a shot sort of midway through my sanding. This is where I started. As I take the black off, I got to determine how far I want to go. As I go farther and farther, it sharpens up the detail. But then again, if I go too far, it starts taking away from the coloring. So I got to kind of, give it a balance. And then I've got to make the headstock match it. That's why I sort of left some on the headstock. Give me a little leeway. And then, I'll put my color over this. I was going to go blue. Now I think I'm going to go brown because the wood's so nice looking. It'll allow more contrast between the stripes. All right, put some brown on the headstock. I may layer some more on. We'll see how that goes. I also did the back of the guitar. I'm going to make kind of a fade towards the center on the back. This is a maple cover, so it doesn't exactly match, but it'll work out. Well, I wasn't too happy with the way the brown looked, so I sanded it off, left the black, and then redid it blue. Now this is wet. It's going to dry back more it'll be a little brighter. Pontiac Engine Blue 1967 on is my call of the color. So I've put about 14 coats of Tru Oil, that's gunstock oil, on this. It's like tongue oil or whatever, on the headstock. I put some on the neck, and then on the body. I let it sit for a week, and now I'm going to rub it out. I could use my angle grinder with a bonnet on it, but I don't have one, so I'm going to do it by hand because it's just a small thing. See how it comes up. I'm using this Meguiar's. I use this on my car. It's been great, but I use this. This is a little bit more aggressive if you got more orange peel. It's got more abrasive. This has got less abrasive, it indicates. Then I'll put this on there, the show car glaze, and it'll look really nice. I've done one half already, and I'm working on the second half. I went with the Tru Oil just because it's more forgiving than using like a polyurethane. I've used polyurethane rub on, gel. I've used spray on urethanes. You get orange peel with those and you have to polish them out. The Tru Oil comes up with a nice finish, and you can fix it easy if you need to do repairs. At least that's what I've found. So that's the route I'm taking on this. I'll rub it out, and then I'll start my assembly. I'll put the neck on, try and get that in the right position, get the bridge on. and then drop in the electronics. All right, I finished, I used the swirl remover and followed it with a glaze and came up with a pretty nice finish with the Tru Oil. I'm not as good on the back because I didn't prep it as well, but it's going to get scratched up with my belt buckle. So piece of the maple fit right in there. The overlay that I put on the headstock, all nice. Okay, I put the neck on, and before doing that, I double checked the bridge position. Ooh. And the way I double check the bridge position is I grab a straight edge. I put some painter's tape on the body so I wouldn't scratch it. And I put a straight edge on either side of the neck, make some marks, and then I measure to the center point and confirm my position. Before I can screw on the neck, on the bridge, I had to feed the ground wire. It's going to ground underneath the bridge, and then I'll ground it to the tape, the copper tape that I'm going to put in all the wells so that everything's grounded and reduces the hum. Okay, so we've got the ground wire trapped under the front of the bridge. This is, where did I get the bridge? Hipshot. It's a brass bridge with a satin nickel finish. Ground wire is trapped under there. The last screw here, tighten that up, and I'll put the saddles back in. All my string through holes are lining up, which is a good thing. Then I'll put the tuners on. I could line up some strings, or I could go and put in the pickups. I'm going to direct mount the pickups into the holes. I'm not going to use rings. And then I can drop my controls in that I've pre-wired. All right, I installed the tuners. I didn't use the washers that came with them. I tried to keep a leaner look on there, but hopefully that's nice. I use these universal mounts for right now. I didn't have to drill any holes. They're easy. Everything aligns. Put my little brand on there in case somebody in 100 years wonders who built this. I've gone back and I've lined the cavities with the copper tape. My next move is to press the furls in. Should have done that before I put the neck on, but forgot about it in my excitement. So that's my next step. Then I'll put the pickups in. I'll drop my controls in that I've set up already, pre-wired. I've got to put a ground wire on here and hook everything up, and we'll be set. All right, here I am at the trusty shopsmith, and my idea here is I'm going to use it as a press. I'll use the quill to push my furls in just the rest of the way so that I know that they're straight and I can kind of control it. These furls are interesting. I got them from All Parts, and you know, they seem big, but I don't know if that's because it's for a 6-string bass or what, but which I don't have. that's the story. Okay, we got the furls all set. A little bit of a crash in this last one. I never can get the spacing. Next, I'm going to ground my wires to the. I've got my wire coming off the bridge, and I got my shielding, and I'm just grounding all these together. Then I'll carry it into the pocket over here for the controls, ground everything, and hopefully minimize my hum. So now we're working on the bridge pickup. So I've got a DiMarzio Super Distortion in the bridge position, and a DiMarzio Super 2 in the neck position. I had the one pickup, the distortion from the 80s, and then I just bought the other one new. All right, here's where we're at. I did all the wiring. It's kind of messy. Had to redo it because some of the wires fell out. One of the pickups wasn't working right. I've got to push-pull to coil tap them, volume control for both of them, and then my switch. Headstock's all done. Got to polish it up a little, but I sunk the screws in there. I stripped the top of the screws so that I could send them all the way through, put foam blocks underneath, and then they freewheel rather than bind, so I can raise and lower them. This one looks like I got a slight little tilt to it. So next is to put some strings on and see what happens. I have plugged it in, tested it, and everything's good so far. So there we go. A guitar. All right, you can't build a guitar without doing a guitar demo. Here's some other guitars I built. This one's the twin to it with the same body. That one's obviously semi-hollow. It's also a carved top. And then that amp we built, it's a Trinity kit inside a box we made. I'm playing straight through to either the twin or to the deluxe reverb, or the deluxe tweed, and I'll go straight through without any effects. I'll play through the twin right now. Now through the deluxe tweed deluxe there. That's it. Build it yourself.